Hey everybody, it's Chris over at Dixieland Farm with Marissa. And we're here to talk to you about our experience at SeaWorld. So we are on our trip at Orlando, staying at Disney Saratoga Springs, but not actually going to Disney, except for Disney Springs, which is the shopping and entertainment district. We've been doing a SeaWorld trip, so we went to our Discovery Cove, which is a kind of an intimate interactive theme park for water. You get to swim with dolphins and swim with fishes. You're swimming with the fishes.
It broke my heart, Fredo.
Then we went to Busch Gardens, which is out in Tampa, a theme park with animals. And then we went to SeaWorld. And SeaWorld is a theme park that is based around marine life. But one of the things that we did notice that it's a lot of mammals, marine life. So turtles, sea lions, otters.
Turtles aren't mammals.
Well, what are they?
I think they're amphibians.
Amphibians. They still breathe oxygen, though.
Or turtles reptiles? Somebody comment down below.
Yeah, but
My 8th grade science
they don't have
is all
gills,
gone.
though, is what I'm getting at. So they don't breathe
So
underwater.
it was a park that featured not so many fish, but lots of other stuff that lives in the ocean.
That's
Whales,
what I'm getting at.
Seals, sea lions, walruses, otters.
There are several different theaters. There are a small little theater for sea lions with a show that they kind of based it around, sort of like a high school musical thing. The show was horrible, so horrible we left after 5 minutes. We're like, whoa, this is we're used to corny because we're Disney fans, but this was, capital cream corn with big C's, and it was just horrible. And also, after 5 minutes, you already saw all the tricks they could do. So we left. There was actually a sea otter and sea lion exhibit where you could see them swimming around and you could feed them. That was much more entertaining.
And much more interesting because there was one of the animal experts out there answering questions about the sea lions and the seals and the difference between them. We spent a good 20-25 minutes just out there talking, just us and the animal expert, because it's very fascinating. This is not stuff we get to see a lot of where we live, and I kind of like seeing them more in their natural, more natural environment than, dressed up in a lab coat and pretending they're in science class was a little awkward. In the show, but seeing them swim around and interact with each other in that kind of more natural habitat was cool.
One of the downsides of the park that I found was that there actually wasn't as much experts around like there is at Disney, at Animal Kingdom, or even Epcot in the Seas Pavilion. So we got to see manatees. There was nobody around talking about manatees. You either knew it or you didn't. Same thing with the sea turtles. There was kind of a sea turtle movie that you went into a 3D 360-degree thing, and you got to live the life of a sea turtle, from hatchling to laying your own eggs. I'm a turtle. But it was not...
It was fine. It was okay. It wasn't...
Right, but you were expecting to actually learn something about sea turtles, and there wasn't that opportunity.
I learned that a sea turtle baby can be attacked by a giant crab.
The dolphin exhibit that's around, if you pay extra, you get to talk to an expert and
feed them and pet them.
But if you are one of the unwashed masses like we were, you get nothing. So we didn't get to hear anything about the dolphins. Now, we had already, the day before, we're at Discovery Cove, so we already had our fill of dolphins. But if I had only gone to SeaWorld, you would actually expect to interact with sea animals in some fashion, and that really wasn't there. A couple of the roller coasters had aquariums, but that wasn't actually very obvious.
I remember they were so hidden. A lot of the entrances to not just the animal exhibits, but to some of the attractions were not well marked at all. Like the sea turtle one that we went on. I thought we were just walking into a smoking area. There was no signs, no nothing, and like hidden in the little corner was a tiny little path that's apparently how you get down to the ride. And I
think there was a manatee there.
Yeah, there was all kinds of stuff over there, but it was not well marked at all outside of, if you had the map in your hand and we're looking at the map.
Even at Disney, so if there wasn't a person there, there's usually placards telling you stuff. Really, the only placards were don't throw away plastic straws because it kills animals.
Right.
That's like the only thing that they kept going on and on about. And so much so that, I wanted a straw even more. I was so desperate to have a straw to drink. But that's my own issue. So.
Well, aside from the animals, same thing like I noticed with Busch Gardens, it was a very clean park. It was the people we did interact with, the staff were very friendly. The ones we spoke to were very knowledgeable. I just wish there were some more of them around. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful park. The layout a little confusing, but we're kind of used to that Magic Kingdom hub and spoke thing. That when you have a park that's got lots of paths and stuff, and you start to get a little lost, and you end up backtracking a little bit. So it was a little disorienting, but it was lovely while we were searching for whatever else we were trying to find.
Busch Gardens was basically a circle. SeaWorld was kind of all over the place, and then there was sort of a cut through in the middle that broke off into two different little things that were it was super hard to figure out exactly where you were. And no fault of SeaWorld at all, but there were a couple of school groups, and that was fine, but right around lunchtime, the park attendance amped up so greatly that it was hard to get onto stuff. So
right, we got there the first 2-3 hours, everything was a walk-on, but right after lunch, suddenly the last two things we hadn't had a chance to do yet were 50 and 60-minute waits.
Yeah, right. So we just ended up not doing everything, but we had done enough anyway, so it was fine. The three coasters, all of them great.
There's Manta, which is, I assume that's some sort of ancient sea language for roller coaster that will try to kill you.
I had no issue with it. So Marissa does not like those flying kind of roller coasters. So
I do not.
You get harnessed in, and then you are lifted up, so you are like flying like Superman. I have no issue with those kind of roller coasters.
I do not like any ride where my full weight is leaning against the only thing holding me in. So there's like this rubber vest piece that comes down over your shoulders, and as you're hanging upside down, all of your weight is leaning against it. So if the latch failed, you're gonna die.
Exacerbating it is that there actually was a problem with one of the
one of the trains was broken.
Right.
The one they put us on, it just wasn't the row we were in.
Right. So they ended up having to switch tracks, switch trains. It was fine. They handled it very well. It was only maybe a 15-minute delay.
Yeah.
But just seeing that, and then when the last car finally came in, we realized they were hanging, laying in this contraption for 15 minutes outside in the Florida sun. So that also, I guess, probably puts you a little bit on edge.
Ramped it up a little bit.
Then we went on Mako, which is Tim Tracker's favorite coaster. I can see why. It goes super high, super low, super fast, 90-degree turns, everything. No loops, but you do angle pretty good on it, and there's only a lap bar. And barely a lap bar at that.
It's like a little padded piece that comes up right up against your stomach, and I mean it pushes you in pretty tight, but mine would not. I couldn't get it that click, that one extra click, so that there's a lot of hang time, a lot of air time on this ride. I spent most of it not touching the seat, and that little tiny inch of clearance between me and that bar was enough to lift me up out of the seat for the vast majority of the ride. Now that said, I loved it, but man, that was a different kind of scary because I liked it. It was good.
And what else is there? Kraken. So the Kraken, for a while there, had a VR experience, and then it didn't. That one started out fine. I mean, I'm on any roller coaster, I'm fine. But then it did some twists and turns that were intense. And how could if you flipped over a roller coaster once, you've done it. It's like not really scary, but somehow this one was scary.
It was like we were doing pretty good. It was intense, and then about halfway through, it was like, oh, you didn't think that was scary enough? Well, here, let's try this. And then they were just basically like trying to murder you on the rest of the ride with flipping and twisting and whatever. And it was so smooth. It was very smooth. I found it a very smooth roller coaster. It wasn't jerky, but there was a lot of G-forces working.
I also think that there was no gentle lead up into the corkscrews or loops that just. All of a sudden, especially with the corkscrews, you were just there, and then boom, you flipped, and kind of threw you off balance. So the VR experience was not present anymore. Maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't. I could see how that is extremely disconcerting wearing one of those helmets, and as it is, you don't know when things are coming. So having the VR helmet on, trapped in Florida heat, I know it's probably not the best thing. So I'm kind of glad it wasn't there.
Yeah. We also got to see both of the killer whale shows. There's the One Ocean, and then Discovery.
Right, so the Ocean Discovery one is more like for students. There were a lot of students there. It was about
Why whales do what they do.
right, and
Behavior.
how behavior and things like that. And they do all the tricks. And then we went to the normal whale show, which is just sort of like, putting a tutu on a dog and making them dance kind of a show.
There's flips and twists, and then a lot of splashing the audience. We sat out of the splash
So
zone.
everything they did on the first show, but
More of it.
more, da 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 da, kind of, entertainment. Look at the whale do all the tricks. So the first show I thought was infinitely better, the Ocean Discovery.
Right. I think there's more information about it. I think part of the problem is I think the one ocean, the big one, not the educational one, the second one, used to be more than what it is. And after the unfortunate incident a few years ago where the trainer sadly died, they changed how that show was done dramatically. The trainers are no longer allowed in the water with the dolphins, so they had to retool quite a bit of it. And I think, maybe they should have just turned it into something different, because it's just almost exactly the same as the other one, but without all the cool information that went along with it. But yeah, I think they had to tone that show down quite a bit. They lost a lot of parts of it now that, after that, like I said, that very sad incident. What else? Oh, there were a couple of other rides there. We didn't get to do some of them.
No, there was one. There was a penguin ride.
It's supposed to be like super cold when you go through it.
Yeah, we didn't get to do that. The line was too long, and we just weren't going to do it. And there was another show sort of like that, I think,
And then there was the Journey to Atlantis or Escape from Atlantis,
which is
Same
basically
thing. Like
Jurassic Park.
like the flume ride, the big with the drop and the big splash at the end.
So we didn't do that either. There was an aquarium in there, but it was so hot and hard to get through. A lot of foreigners around this time who were confused and would just block entrances, and it was kind of hard to maneuver around some of these groups, so it was just easier not to. So that's also a normal Florida thing, especially in May and September when we love to go.
One of the things I noticed in all of the parks that's very different from Disney is the amount of smoking that's just like smoking everywhere. There are designated smoking areas, but there was no enforcement by the team members like they do at Disney World. You take a cigarette out and like somebody sees it, and Disney security or cast members are all over you to put it out or go to a smoking area. There were just people smoking and vaping, and I must have walked through 5 or 6 different vape clouds of cotton candy or whatever scent it is, and that got to be a little bit much. The park was clean, but it definitely was. They didn't have the same kind of enforcement that I think Disney has with their stuff. And I don't know how the men's rooms were. Some of the ladies' rooms
Men's room were fine.
needed a little attention.
I will say that the men's room at SeaWorld and Busch Gardens and Discovery Cove doesn't count because that's kind of a higher end park. But the other 2 parks, the bathrooms were cleaner than Disney, to be honest
Really?
with you. Disney's bathroom cleaning has gone downhill considerably over the years. They used to be impeccable. They used to be cleaned every 15 minutes or so, and now they're, I think, cleaned hourly, if that. And there's always trash overflowing, but more importantly, there's always
Stuff.
there's always wet spots around everywhere. So you got to be careful where you put your feet. And there was none of that at either parks that we went to for the men's room, which is good.
What else can we tell them?
We didn't really eat food. We were preparing ourselves for a large meal that
well, we
night.
had the
So we ended up
pretzel.
having there was kind of a pretzel restaurant, believe it or not, and we had a cheeseburger pretzel. So it was basically a cheeseburger inside a pretzel. They also had kind of a pizza pretzel. They had a hot dog pretzel, and then just a regular pretzel, and then a lot of dipping sauces and that kind of stuff. So we kind of had a large-ish snack. It wasn't really that large.
Yeah,
But-
it was like about yay big, but we cut it in half, and we enjoyed it while we watched the show in Shamu Stadium, because we had plans for a very large meal later in the day.
But from what I understand, the barbecue restaurant at SeaWorld is very good. It smelled good.
Really good. And were they just gearing up to have their food and wine festival? Is that also supposed to start? It's only on the weekends, I think.
I can't remember if they just had it or are about to have it. I know they just had kind of do they have a Mardi Gras thing as well?
Well, I think I saw all the signs and the booths were up for their food and wine festival, but I think it only happens on Saturday and Sunday.
And if you ever watch any videos online, that also looks like a very good event, and the food looks really good. But unfortunately, we're not here for that. That's all I can say about SeaWorld. It was a very good time. Out of all the parks we went to, it was my least favorite, but still a great time. Certainly worth taking the time to go to that park.
Not, I wouldn't say it was bad. It's just if I had to rank them in order, I would put Discovery Cove #1 for sure. Even with it doesn't have rides, but man, it was just a relaxing, enjoyable, educational day. I'd put Busch Gardens #2, and then SeaWorld #3.
And Aquatica doesn't count as a theme park. It's
No.
it's a different kind of park. So.
Right.
Yeah. So from Dixieland Farm, I think we've gone on long enough. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, everybody. Bye.